everybody. My name's Felicia Rose, and this is Scars and Stillness podcast. Thank you all for coming back for our episode number 4. Before we start anything, I want to just do a quick check in. So, as mentioned before, I will always have notes right here on my computer. At any point in time, if you see me glancing over this way, or if you're listening on Spotify and you hear me pause for a brief second, it's because I'm checking in on my notes. I just wanna make sure that I am hitting all my key points that I wanna hit to make sure that I'm talking about all the information per thing, because it's all really important, and I think it's sacred. It deserves the respect to have it all on there. So, um, and then another quick thing, um, Scars and Stillness podcast is a very raw, real place that we can go to express ourselves, and I'm just a woman who has been through it. And my goal with Scars and Stillness was to just have an authentic place where I can open up about who I am and what I've been through in hopes that someone else, even one person, will hear this and it will help them. They won't feel so alone. Okay. So I usually like to put a trigger warning in my episodes because, the stuff that we talk about, trauma is pretty tough. And a lot of the stuff that we discuss is also really tough. Just a lot of the stuff that we have to work through is not easy. And so sometimes when you hear something, it could hit a little too close to home and it might not be something that we're ready to hear yet. And that's okay. Just check in with yourself and listen to your body and the feelings that you're feeling and acknowledge them. Don't just throw them away or toss them aside. I think if you're having a reaction to a topic that we're talking about, it's really important to acknowledge that and do whatever is best for you. If that's pausing the video, pause the video. If that's just taking a safe space to maybe listen to it by yourself and you don't really have to worry about anyone else, do that. Just please know that putting yourself first and taking care of yourself is what's really important. Okay, so let's get into it. This is episode 4, as mentioned. Today, I want to talk about survivor wisdom. So, like the hard earned insights from abuse and addiction and loss of self, like self identity. Really quick, I just want to say that last week's episode for me, when we talked about mental health disorders and the weight it carries in families, it was really heavy for me. It was a really heavy topic. Um, and I felt like I had a moment where I felt like shame. Like, man, I don't think I should be posting this or, because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings and I don't want, for some magical way for my mom to watch my podcast and see that and it just hurt her. I don't want that. And so, yeah, I felt some pretty weird shame after that, and then I obviously prayed about it and realized that like it's important. Those kind of things are important and we literally talked about in our podcast last week that shame and silence is part of the problem. So I think that by me sharing that, if even one person is like, I have a family member like that, or I'm like that, and thank you for, talking about it and being vulnerable. I think that, you know, that old saying where it says, be the change you want to see in the world. I think that that's true. I think that we each have to take a step towards the direction in the world in which we want. So, anyways, I just kind of wanted to do a disclosure there that last week was really hard. It was a really heavy episode for me, and I just thank all of you for the grace that you've given me, and the support that I've had with the podcast has been amazing, and so I just thank everyone for reaching out to me on all the different socials. Um, and yeah, I mean, if this is something that you like and you feel like you're getting something out of it, please feel free to like and subscribe and share if you want to share. You can also follow me on my other socials. I've had lots of requests on of my socials, which is great. I will say most of my most of my content is probably on Instagram. And then I don't know if you can see it, but in the side here, I do have my handles on all my platforms there, and I also have it in my bio. Anyways, moving on with the episode. Um, so, yeah, I felt like it was really important for us to discuss addiction and abuse and the loss of self identity and just survivor wisdom. Like, these kind of things aren't things you're going to read about in a book or, learn by a doctor. It's just literally lived experience. It's stuff that you have learned along the way. My biggest thing for starters is resilience is built, it is not born. Like when people you often hear people say that like the stuff that I have been through has made me strong, right? And that's 100% true. We we're not just naturally strong, like we're not just these naturally strong women or men, like life and trauma and abuse and experiences and like survival. Being put in a position where you are forced to survive, it's what's creating that resilience, Like you get back up, you have to keep going. That creates resilience. And so yeah, I liked that when, like because resilience is built, it's not born. And a lot of us who say, I've been through a lot in my life and, you know, it's created a lot of obstacles, but also a lot of like lots of wins too. I think that even just reminding ourselves of that, like we weren't born strong, we were built strong. And the things that we have overcome is huge. And I think that we as survivors should celebrate that instead of just kind of minimizing it that, oh well, you've always been strong. And I've heard that a lot. I've heard that a lot in my life with the, well, you've always been strong or you were always an old soul and I mean maybe I was, but I was also born in chaos. You know what I mean? Like I was built like I was from just birth, I was in an environment where I was already being built into resilience because that was the environment in which that I was in. So, um my second little key point that I want to go over is boundaries are life saving. I have talked about boundaries many times, but for real though, um they really are. They really are life-saving for, um, all of us, and so I feel like a little bit of backstory on that, um, I have I've obviously been in abusive relationships where I've been put in positions, that I wish I was never put in, and I became, addicted to, a drug that I was introduced to by my abuser. And it was amazing to me how quick my life completely shattered before me. And I'm literally not kidding you. So self-medicating was always pretty normalized in my family. Lots of drinking, lots of marijuana use, but never really anything hardcore. Like never anything huge or major. I mean, I'd seen stuff at parties, back in the day, but it was never anything that I was just never interested in that. You know what I mean? Like, I was never really into that. It wasn't my thing. I was a drinker. Like, I remember even when I was, like, a teenager, everyone was smoking pot, and, like, that was just not something that was my brain didn't handle that well? And so that wasn't something for me. But then, yeah, being around my abuser and then being introduced to this whole new world and this drug was just it was literally life-changing in not a good way. It completely stole my soul. Like, I felt like it completely stole my soul. And not only was I dealing with being an addict at this point, but I was also in abuse. You know what I mean? Like, I was going through abuse at the same time as addiction, And then not only am I losing my self-identity from my addiction, but I'm also losing my self-identity from my abuser. Like, um, and a thing about abuse, I feel like people minimize domestic violence majorly and what they consider abuse. You actually learn in treatment. I had to go to a domestic violence survivors course back in the day when I had left my abuser. It was this program that I had to go through, which was really beneficial, but yeah, you just learned a lot of information, but you actually learn in there all different kinds of forms of abuse that some people wouldn't even know. Like, you wouldn't even know that was a thing. For an example, like gaslighting. I'm not sure if that term is familiar with people. It's pretty common now. It never used to be as big and so known back then. But it is pretty known now. So gaslighting is basically when someone is making your reality seem not real. You know what I mean? Like basically my best examples are I have seen with my own eyes you hurting me or cheating on me or, stealing from me or doing all these things. And then the abuser is going to turn around and look at me and say, no, that's not what you saw. Nope, that didn't happen. That's not at all what happened. This is what I did. You're seeing things. You're crazy. You know what I mean? And then it's usually repeated to you. And then it gets to a point where you're overanalyzing what just happened in your brain. And you're kind of like, Is he telling the truth? Am I? Did I really, imagine that? Maybe he didn't actually do that. Maybe that's just something that I thought that I seen. And then basically you're put in this position where you're second guessing yourself. You're not sure if you can even trust your own self at this point. You're being 100% controlled and abused at that point. That's gaslighting, and it's terrible. I'll tell you what, being gaslit and going through that on a regular basis really does make you feel like you're losing your mind. Um, and unfortunately, my ex, he is a master manipulator. He is like the biggest narcissist I have ever met in my entire life, and I'm not even close to kidding. At least as a male. I have met some females, like, I definitely won't, say any names, but I have met some females that I have literally mentioned, like, to my partner when we talk about healing and stuff that, some of the females that I know are, like, a spitting image of my abuser just as a female, like a female version, and, um, just being in that, state and going through that and, dealing with the abuse is, that alone is such a heavy weight. You know what I mean? Like, that alone is a heavy weight. And for me, I mean, abuse shows different faces. Shows a lot of different faces. No, it's not all bloody and bruises all the time, you know? It's you go through roller coasters with abuse. You really do. You have your honeymoon time where, you're just coming out of a fight and, "Oh, I love you, baby. It'll never happen again." And, he's just really passionate and just really cares about me. All the self-made excuses that we give ourselves to try to minimize what's happening to us and make it okay and normalize it in our brains, even though every ounce of our being is telling us to run or this isn't safe. This is not okay. You know what I mean? Um, for an example, so first when I first got with my abuser, I was warned by my partner now, my first love. I was warned by him not to get with my abuser at all. In fact, the only reason why I got with my abuser in the first place was I was trying to piss off my partner that I have now, my first love, because as mentioned in one of my other podcasts, me and my partner, we were first loves and we were both we both grew up in really hard environments, and he was the king of sabotage, which I've already talked about, and basically, without sugarcoating things, he was just like he was a huge, um he was a huge player. Like, when we were teenagers, he was always cheating on me, and, he would just hurt my heart all the time, and he'd, you know, bring me in and, push me away, and it would always break me in half, and I felt like an idiot because I was, like, just so in love, and, I didn't have eyes for a single other person even though there were many other people who wanted my attention. I couldn't even care less because I was so just madly in love with my partner, but that my abuser was the one person that my partner now, my first love, was so dead set on me not being with. And so for me, that was probably the biggest reason why I did get with him because I was like, "Screw you, you don't want me to be with him? Cool, watch this." Because I wanted to hurt him. I wanted to hurt my partner, and I wanted to show him, what it felt like. I'd never cheated on him for all the years we'd been together, dealing with all the stuff that we had dealt with all the time, and so I was like, "Here, take this. How do you like that?" Well, it turns out I shoulda listened to my partner because, he knew what he was talking about, and then I remember the first 3 months, there was no, like, physical abuse or anything like that, but there were a lot of red flags that I completely, on purpose, ignored. Like, I'm a child of abuse. I grew up in abuse. I grew up watching my mom get beat. Like, I knew the red flags. Like, I knew, like, that's not okay. Safe people don't do that." You know what I mean? Like, if if we get into an argument and you're throwing furniture across the house and breaking our coffee tables literally over nothing, that's not a good sign. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care how angry you are. Um, that's safe people don't do that. You get so mad at me and you're yelling and screaming in my face and then you punch the wall right by my head. You're right. You technically didn't put your hands on me, but what was all the other stuff? You know what I mean? Like, it's all signs and red flags to the future. Another thing that was, like, a huge red flag to me that I just completely ignored was, the way that my abuser treated his mom. There's a lot of studies about that. The way that, a male will treat his mom is a huge indicator of how he's gonna treat you, you know? And, yeah, they had such a weird relationship. It was a lot of, like, what's that term in, like, the workforce that you're not supposed to do? Like, what is it? Quid pro quo? Like, this for that? It was a lot of that in their, like, parenting relationship where, his mom, allegedly, I don't even know if it's true because I can't really believe anything that he says, but allegedly, his mom was what created his drug problem in the first place. So he used to steal his mom's, prescription pain meds, and after she had found out about it, she'd give them to him. She would give him the pain meds, um, for, like, because she'd wanna spend time with him, or she'd say, like, "Yeah, you can have some of these, but can you watch a movie with me?" Or, "Can you let me pop pimples off on your back?" Or whatever it was. I always thought it was super weird, and then I was always told by him, of course, that, like, I was being too sensitive, I needed to grow up, that was, like, a normal completely normal, you know, parenting relationship, and that I only thought it was weird because I have trauma there, and maybe that's true, like, I'm not undermining that. Maybe that is true, maybe I am hypersensitive because I grew up with unsafe people, and I, grew up with a really inappropriate father who did really inappropriate things, and for me, having, like, weirdly close relationships with your parents, um, strikes a nerve for me. That's a bit too much. You know what I mean? That's a bit too much for me. But yeah, the first 3 months of our relationship, he wasn't physical to me. He was physical to the environment. He was mean, like, meaner than a snake, like, as mean as the devil to his mom if he didn't get his way. He was borderline abusive to his mom. There were times that they would get into fights, and I would see him, like, rush inside the house and, like, get in her face and yell, screaming and yelling at her like he's gonna hit her, and I was like, "You know, it's probably not gonna be too long before that's me." And it's really sad that I felt like that and I knew that. But the other side of abuse that nobody talks about is the immediate effect that a toxic relationship has on you, your self-identity, your codependency. It's all hanging by a thread. And I think there's also studies about it, but like I think abusers, they really hunt down empathetic people and people who have been through a lot because we're easier to control. We're more vulnerable, you know? For instance, my abuser is 5 years older than me. He's 5 years older than me. When I first got into a relationship with him, I think I was 17. Do the math. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, when I was younger, it was not uncommon for, there to be an age gap with people. That wasn't weird or uncommon, like, that's just kind of how it went, like, 17-year-olds would be with 20-year-olds all the time, um, even if legally that wasn't, like, appropriate, that wasn't something that was uncommon, but 5 years, that's a big gap. That's a big gap. Um, and that always felt a little weird for me, like, I'm, like, a teenager right now, and you're, like, a grown man. Like, I'm 17 years old. Like, that's ugh, I don't know. But yeah, from, like, the stuff that doesn't really get talked about is that immediate pull. There's, like, this immediate invisible pull that happens in abuse. Like, you know that this person is bad for you. You know that this person is dangerous. You know that this person can potentially literally ruin your life, which is usually what happens, but there's this, like, intense infatuation pull to that person. At least in the honeymoon phase, like, at least in the honeymoon phase, and that's kinda where I was at, like, I I wasn't in love, like, I wasn't in love with him by any means. I was always in love with my partner, like, I was always in love with my first love. I was always really vocal about that, even when I was with my abuser, I was really vocal about that, especially after our relationship transitioned where I was like, "Cool, I'm trapped and I'm never allowed to leave you. Like, you won't let me leave." I was always really vocal to him about how, like, "I can't stand you. You're not who I wanna be with. I wanna be with my first love and you won't let me." I was always really vocal about that, but at the very, like, start of our relationship, I knew I wasn't in love with him by any means, but I feel like I just had this, like, pull to him. Like, even though he's bad for me, I'm just gonna walk right into the flames. I'm just gonna walk right into the burning house and, I guess, kiss my life goodbye. And it's so hard to, like, explain why that is. It's almost like an outer body experience. Like, you look at it in a different perspective later when you're grown and you're like, "What the hell is wrong with me? Like, why did I do that?" You know what I mean? Like, why the hell did I put myself in these positions to do that when I know what's gonna happen. I can already see the finish line. I've seen this happen 72 different times to every other woman in my life. And I've actually talked to women who've also been in abusive rela and men, because domestic violence does not have, like, one set gender. I wanna just put that out there right now. There's a stigma with that, with domestic violence, which pisses me off. Um, Women can fully beat men, and men can fully beat women. Men can beat men, women can beat women. It is not like you have to be a man to beat a woman. Like, no. Men can be abused too. Men can be in an abused relationships too. I have single-handedly seen it happen multiple times, and they deserve to have the advocacy, and they deserve to have equal rights when it comes to resources to help them as well. Like, just putting that out there. Like, from where I'm at, we do have some pretty solid domestic violence resources around us like Cardva, but the problem with Cardva, which I love Cardva. Cardva saved my ass, and Cardva helped me get away from my abuser in the first place, but the problem with Cardva is that they do not help men. Cardva does not help men, um, at least they never used to. I don't know if they finally got their shit together and updated their stuff, but at least back in the day, they would not help men. They wouldn't work with men, um, and I feel like that's old school, and it's not accurate at all. My older brother, is the definition of a male domestic violence relationship. You know, his old partner and him, like, they were dating in high school and all that, and, like, he had been in an abusive relationship with her for 15 years, and he never once put his hands on her, but she would beat the brakes off him. Like, he would always be having broken ribs and broken noses and all kinds of stuff for doing nothing wrong. So but yeah, so I just feel like, um, domestic violence comes in any gender, and I think that same with how I talked about with mental health illnesses, like, we are literally at the end, like, pushing the end of 2025. We should have better resources by now for and support for, mental health disorders. We should have better support for men, domestic violence. Like, it's insane to me that it seems non-existent. My partner, actually, before him and I got back together, as grown-ups, he was in a severely abusive relationship as well, and, um, I seen pictures and everything firsthand of him just being just, like, beat to crap, and he of course didn't get justice, he of course didn't get justice for those because why would he? Somehow it got contorted and switched around how, "No, that's not abuse," "That's not abuse." And if a man were to punch a woman in the face, like, that's immediately domestic violence. So why is it not immediately domestic violence if a woman punches a man in the face? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a weird double standard. Makes no sense to me. Anyways, kind of getting back into it, my whole point was that, like, the first however many months of our relationship, it was, like, still the honeymoon, I still had that pull, there was no, like, direct physical abuse. But then, yeah, like, by 3 months, it was, "Okay, wow, this isn't good, it's getting kinda bad." Like, it turned really, like, I don't think I can leave this guy." Like, every time I tried to leave or tell him, like, "This isn't gonna work out, this isn't a good situation, um, I'm not gonna be able to do this anymore," um, something happened. Something would always happen, he'd be suicidal, because he couldn't live without me, and then you get that, like, suicidal guilt, like, I don't want, like, his life on my hands type deal, so, and there's a lot of examples, but that was a really common one in the first beginning months of our relationship, um, and then obviously the deeper that we got in, it didn't even matter, like, if I tried to leave, um, that wasn't gonna happen. Like, the more I tried to leave, the worse things would get for me. Um, but just kind of fast forwarding, so obviously it's already hard enough when you're in an abusive relationship because your self identity is already like deteriorating by the second. You start to like kind of shift and mold your identity into your abuser, not even on purpose. It's something that literally happens. Um, I could feel it happening when it was happening to me. I could feel myself kind of becoming, like, clouded and, like, "This isn't me. He's stealing me away from me." And that was really hard to deal with. And then comes addiction, you know what I mean? Like, because in its own way, abusive relationships kind of become an addiction as well. It kind of becomes an addiction. You become so codependent on your abuser or that person, and you believe the lies they're telling you. You believe that you're not shit without them. You believe that you couldn't survive without them, even though you did just fine before you were with them, but your brain doesn't know that anymore. You know what I mean? So you really do think like, I don't know what to do. I can't be without them. I want to leave and I know that I should leave, but I don't know how to even do that. Where to even go, how to even start. And it's just like this never-ending cycle of hell that you're in. Um, Addiction is very similar. Addiction is very similar. He started being like really disrespectful with drugs probably 3 months into our relationship. He was like he told me like he hid it. He hid his addiction from me probably the first 2 months, and then eventually he told me like, "Listen, there's something I gotta tell you. This is something that I have always struggled with, blah, 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 blah." And then I was like, "Okay, that's kinda scary." Like, that's a big deal. And I already had trauma with drugs. I already had trauma with drugs, like, my first love had a drug problem, like, he got lost in drugs, and I felt like I had already lost him to that world. Also, one of my very best friends, like, back in the day, I also lost him to the drug world, you know what I mean? Like, I had watched him literally change and just become a totally different person, and, so I was really, like I was sensitive with the drug thing because I was like, I don't wanna deal with this again, you know? But yeah, so he used to not do them or sell them around me, and then not very long into our relationship, that completely changed. He would have people come over so he could sell to them, or he would just openly do them in front of me, which, um, at first was really uncomfortable. I was like, "This is not the life that I want for myself." And I think it was probably 6 to 8 months into our relationship was when he started to, like, redirect the drugs to me, where he would like, "Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Just one hit. Just take one hit. Just get high with me one time." And for a long time, I was able to say no and, like, that's not what I want, and for a while it felt like a long time. It might not even have been very long, like, abusive relationships have a tendency of just blurring together. We actually talked about that a while back where I was like, "I was only with him for how long?" Like, I thought I was with him for years and years and years, because it felt like it. I think I was only with him a total of 2 years on and off, um, and it literally felt like 5 years. It felt like a 5-year relationship, and it wasn't. I actually just recently found out, like, when we were all doing the math with things, I was like, "Holy cow, I wasn't even with the dude for very long," and it was a nightmare. Like, I have lasting trauma from that dude, so that's cool. Um, but yeah, so he was just really pushy. He became really pushy about, like, the drugs with me, and eventually I gave in, and I was like, "Fine, whatever, I'll get high with you." And I remember, it was, like, maybe twice. I think I did it maybe twice, and I could feel the change in my body. I can feel myself like, um I think I might have made a mistake because I could feel the desire for it, the need for it, you know what I mean? Like, it completely picked me up and stole me away. And so then I knew that I was really in trouble because I was in a hopeless situation. I was with a person who was unsafe to me, and I had a drug problem now, and I had no idea who the hell I was. You know what? I had no idea who the hell I was, and eventually, after a lot of abuse and a lot of time and a lot of pain, and a lot of going back and wishing that I didn't go back, eventually I was able to get free. I did have the help of Cardva, which was a godsend. They were able to help me and my daughter out, get away from that situation and leave him and kind of start over, which was really hard. It's really hard starting over and surviving, um, after being told that you're nothing, that you're better off dead, that, you can't do it without them, that as a mom, I would be better for my daughter if I was dead than to be a mom to her. a sober brain is gonna be like, "Screw you, dude." You know what I mean? But a person who's in that life, who's in that toxicity, after a while, the lies become your truth, and that was the truth. You know what I mean? So, um, domestic violence and addiction is a nightmare. There's no way to sugarcoat it, no way around it, and for the people who are like, "Well, he's beating her up, and why don't you just leave? Why do you keep going back? Blah, 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 blah." Like, shut up. How about that? How about shut your mouth? Because unless you've lived in that life, unless you've been in that person's shoes, unless you've been in a severely abusive relationship, you can shut right up because it is so hard. It's so much harder than one person would think. Okay? Especially if you got kids involved, which a lot of us that happened to. That happened to. Um, and that's exactly what happened to me. I didn't even want to be with the dude I didn't even want to be with him. I realized after very few months that like this is not going to work for me. I should have listened to my first love. Like this is a bad thing. And then, situations kept happening where I felt like I had to go back. Animal abuse, I just want to point out, is abuse, by the way. That was one of like his tactics to get me to stay. He would he'd hurt my animals. Um and tell me that he would kill my animals if I didn't come back to him. Yeah, so lots of threats of harm to my family, threats of harm to my animals. He did hurt my animals. If it like took me too long to get back. Um, Threats to hurt himself, threats to hurt his mom. Like that's a lot of weight to carry for a person, especially a person who's already been through so much trauma, but then you're in an addiction and you're in an abusive relationship. You feel like you're in a hopeless situation, and then you're in a world where people don't give a shit. Everyone out there is a critic, everyone out there is the judge, everyone out there thinks, "Well, if it were me." Well, it's not you. No one has the right, even people in abuse, even people who have been through, like, an abusive relationship, it's not our place to have comments or commentary for another person's abusive relationship. We have no idea what's going on in their relationship. Sure, there might be some similarities because why not? A lot of them will have similarities within relationships, like gaslighting and emotional and mental and financial and physical and sexual abuse, but every relationship is different, even if it's abusive. So it's not really our jobs to put in our 2 cents that literally no one ever asked for in the first place. Fun fact. Um, but yeah, sorry, rant over. That just even to this day, that stuff will it just pisses me off. Like, okay, Karen, like we hear you. We get it loud and clear. It's the woman's fault or it's the man's fault who's getting beat because they didn't leave. Like, okay. Anyways, moving on. But yeah, my whole point with all of this is that when you have like dual things going on, like addiction, um, mental health stuff, you're going through mental health crises, abusers really commonly isolate. Isolating you is probably the easiest way to abuse you. So that's exactly what happened to me. I moved out at like 15, 16. I was already in kind of a vulnerable state. Then I ended up moving in with my abuser and I got completely isolated from my family. I like basically lost all contact with all of my family. And the only people that I ever really did talk to was my like abuser's family, my abuser's friends, just like his circle of people. I didn't have any of my outside people, including my own best friend. Um, I had nobody. I was completely alone. So, like, I was in an isolated situation where I felt like a lot of stuff was happening to me and I had no idea how to manage it or what to do. Um, and then you throw kids in, and that makes it even more complicated because you're not just trying to fight to survive for yourself, you're trying to fight to survive for your little person as well. So, eventually, I was able to be free. I got me and my kiddo out of there. Um, and honestly, healing, like trying to figure out who I was after my domestic violence relationship and my addiction was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my entire life, and I'm not kidding you. Like, getting sober from a hardcore drug, that was really rough. The withdrawal sucked, that was really rough. But I'm telling you right now, when somebody strips your identity down to bone and you literally have no idea who you are anymore, it's really scary. Even to this day, like, the thought of losing myself again is far more scary than, losing friendships or relationships or whatever. Like, I've felt that pain. I know what it's like to have no idea who I am. And there's lasting effects on abuse. Like, even to this day, I say, "Is that true? Or is that real? Or, that's not real. That's not real. I'm gonna let that go. That's not real." Because abuse has lasting effects. Physical abuse, like, sure, it hurts in the moment, but it's all the other abuse that sticks to you. It, like, sticks to you like tar and it will not come off. That's the stuff that's hard because you carry it with you in your bones. It just doesn't go away. And that's the stuff that we have to work through. So, yeah, one of my biggest things is boundaries. Like, having solid boundaries is completely life-saving when you're in survival and you're transitioning from abuse to, like, I always used to call it abuse to becoming, like, I was becoming myself again. Um, a huge part of that is walking away from things that harm you, including people, like, or places or habits. So, and for me, like, obviously walking away from my abuser, but also walking away from my addiction and then staying away from the places in which involved my addiction, like places I used to use or someone who sold. Like, I wouldn't go in those environments to trigger me. I would use wisdom and realize, like, that's not gonna be beneficial for my life. I also realized that it's best for my healing and best for my recovery to stay away from those kind of environments, to stay away from those kind of people who are doing stuff like that because that's not my life anymore. And, oftentimes I was told back in the day, like, from people who are in that world, they would tell me stuff like, "What are you doing here? Like, you shouldn't be in this world at all. Like, you're better than this." Um, and that's kind of an eye opener too. I feel like no one should be in that world, but people just they get stuck. And sometimes they're not able to save themselves and it's really sad because a lot of the people that I know that used to use, the core of them are beautiful people. They've just been hurt or lost for too long and then that's kind of it. Then the drug steals their soul and some people can't find their way back to who they are. So yeah, my next topic is that healing isn't linear. Like, there are things that happen like relapses. Relapses is super common, setbacks are super common. There's days that you feel like, "What the hell is wrong with me? I am so broken beyond repair. Maybe I'm not a good enough mom. Maybe I'm not a good enough person. Maybe I should be alone." Even to this day. So, I got out away from him, and I think it was 11 years ago or something. And even to this day, I have days where I'm, like, so beyond broken that I have to remind myself that, like, "It's okay. You're safe. You're safe now. Things are okay." Like, it's just really important for us to remind ourselves that, like, relapses happen, setbacks happen. It's just a part of it. Much as it sucks, I think just having that wisdom and realizing that, like, we are humans who have been extremely hurt, and we're just trying to move forward and become healed. You know what I mean? Like, so with that being said, obviously with recovery comes community and connection. Um, I I feel like connection looks super different for everybody. It looks super different for everybody. 9 times out of 10 when you get sober, the counselors and everybody will recommend, like, support groups, treatment, um, you know, whatever the case may be. But there is no right or wrong way to get sober. There is no right or wrong way to remove yourself from an abusive relationship. What is working for you is what works for you, and you don't have to justify that to anybody. Um, Me, for examples, is like, I did go to treatment. I did go to outpatient treatment. It was a godsend for me. It saved my life, and I was able to, take it serious, get clean, stay clean, um, and really work alongside my counselors and alongside my doctor to stay on the straight and narrow and to, like, see this is the life that I want, and I'm not gonna go back. So treatment was amazing for me because I learned a lot of tools. I also learned that addiction is not addiction is not the, like, actual problem. Addiction is a side effect to the problem, which is a beautiful thing to think about, um, because I can't think of like, if I think right now of people who either are on drugs or who have a history with substance abuse or alcoholism, I can't think of one person who literally woke up and was like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna be a meth addict today." Or "You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do heroin and I'm gonna ruin my life." You know what I mean? Like, no one is waking up and is like, "Ooh, can't wait to be a drug addict." Like, there really is, like, underlying things going on that kind of just pull it to you. An addiction becomes a side effect of the problem that's actually happening, you know? Or addiction also still becomes the side effect of the problem actually happening because you're using it as a coping mechanism and it's just hurting you, not helping you. You know what I mean? So, what I mean by connection looks different for everyone, if support groups work for you, then more power to you. Literally, more power to you. Mm, Me personally, I I do not do well in support groups. I didn't like NA, I don't like AA. I found that a circle of people that I don't know, and learning how to, like, be sober was not comfort for me. It was anxiety for me. It was a lot of, like, war stories that people would tell, or even sometimes I would go into support groups and people would be romanticizing their addiction. How is that helping me? Like, hello, I'm trying to, like, not want to drink. I'm trying to not wanna use drugs, and you over here, will not shut up about how great your life was when you were an addict. Then how about you go do what you need to do and then stop making it harder for everybody else? So for me personally, groups, not my thing. I know a lot of people who, like, they swear by AA or NA and, like, the 12-step program and that it saved their life, and if that's the case, like, seriously, great job, more power to you. I was never that person. I am a spiritual person, and I found more strength in my recovery with God and rebuilding my life with baby steps, and finding beauty in small wins is such an important thing where, like, and people who've been through abuse or addiction, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Finding beauty in small wins, meaning, like, survival sharpens your eye for the little things, okay? Survival will sharpen your eye for the little things. For an example, 1 day sober. That's a small victory, but a huge victory at the same time, you know what I mean? That is a small win. Um, Having 1 night of sleep where you're not in survival mode. I just slept in a bed and I was safe, and I wasn't afraid that I was gonna get hurt in my sleep. That's a little win. Um, or even no nightmares, like, I slept, I didn't have any nightmares today, or, like, in my sleep. Um, I got to see a friend who I haven't seen in however many years because my abuser isolated me away from them, and we had some really good laughs. That's a small win. For me, when I was a single mom and I was doing it all on my own, and I was literally in treatment to be sober, I was also in parenting classes to, like, figure out how to be a mom. My kiddo was, like, 1 years old at the time, so I was like, it was a lot. going on all at one time, um, that I was like little wins for me would be like, I didn't cry today because I felt like I wasn't good enough, or, I made my daughter biscuits and gravy, and her smile was so big today, like, it's just I feel like after you feel freedom from abuse and addiction, you see life in a different way. You realize how absolutely fragile your life is, that I think that you start seeing your life as this beautiful thing that you should wanna live. You should want to just experience every moment with the people that actually matter and not be lost anymore. And so I think that, instead of focusing on all the icky stuff, all the bad stuff, all the hard stuff about recovery and leaving abusive relationships and all the, self-identity crises, and, like, it takes a long time to find your way. It takes a long time. It takes a long way to find yourself from abuse. It takes a long time to feel kind of set in recovery. Um, but it really is, like, an amazing feeling to after you go through these things where you're like, this is what actually matters. These people. These people are what actually matter, and, like, you get to a place where you're like, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I don't have to worry about that anymore. I don't have to wake up stressed out or sick, or I don't have to worry about getting hurt for being who I am. I live in a safe, stable, healthy environment. My kids will never know the, like, hurt and pain and abuse that I've endured. Like, those alone are beautiful feelings, and I feel like we have literally taken our power back, and we have, like, held it. And now there's a part of me that feels like it's my job to also speak out on it, to advocate for people, any human being who's going through that, that, this is the survivor wisdom for legit the hard-earned insights, because we've been through it. We've walked through this fire. Like, this is something that we've endured, you know? And I wrote a note here that says, "There's no wrong way to survive. The wisdom you carry is yours, and that's enough." Meaning that no one's survival is gonna look the same, no one's healing process is gonna look the same, no one's connection or community is gonna look the same. Things that worked for me in my recovery might not work for everybody, and that's absolutely completely okay. It's just important to find your circle of safety and remain firm in that. And understand and know that you're not the lies that the abuser told you. You're not your addiction. You're not the things that other people, even in the outside world, have said about you. You're not your past. I have so many people who are like, "Oh yeah, well I knew her, blah 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 blah." You know what? Cool. Let them hang on to that, cuz I'll tell you right now, I'm not at all the same girl I was a year ago. I'm definitely not the same girl I was 5 years ago. I'm not even the same girl I was 3 months ago. I'm forever growing and changing and healing. Um, and so the world can think and feel however they want about us. That's not our business. What our business is focusing on our life and our growth and our healing, and realizing that we are not alone in this fight. There are plenty of us who have been there, who get it, and who understand that, like, we're safe now and it's going to be okay. And we are beautifully broken. And as, like, our name, we can carry our scars, but we can also find stillness as well. Thank you, everybody. That's really all I have for today's episode. Again, this is a pretty heavier topic, and it got a little bit deep for me as well. But if you found anything that was close to home for you, um, and that if it's something that you might want to, like, talk more about, you can feel free to leave me a comment. Or if you don't want it to be so public, you can feel free to, like, message me privately, and I can talk to you and we can go in deeper with those topics. But my main thing I wanted to discuss is, like, finding yourself again after abuse or addiction or things like that. Um, and it's hard even when you're in the middle of it. Like, when some people could be seeing this when they're in the middle of it right now. They are, like, in the fire. They're in the middle of addiction and abuse, and they are at the point that I was at where, like, you don't know what is going to happen, and that's okay too. I want to support people, I want to help people in any way that I can. Just know that you are absolutely enough, and you will always and forever be worth saving.